Fast, free delivery from the Home Depot makes your projects hassle-free. Forget something you need? Visit HomeDepot.com or the Home Depot app for free delivery on millions of products, including same-day and next-day options. Get delivery at the speed you need, only at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Order select in-stock items by 4 p.m., subject to availability.
We have been told that we are the big boys in town.
Well, he's into it. I'm talking about he is like lit.
He's about to start preaching.
Let everybody say amen.
I can get chills a little bit thinking about what these two guys can do.
Ladies and gentlemen, a lot has happened since we saw you the last time. Welcome into the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. The three fellas are here. That's DJ Shockley, Dave Archer. I'm Derek Rackley. And we were here before the last regular season game, kind of recapping what happened against the Rams, getting ready for the Saints. And then we had the end of the season and
Things happen.
some things happened, fellas.
A little bit.
So we'll kind of recap what happened since we were here last. Falcons ended up beating the Saints to finish on a 4-game win streak. The organization decided to move on from Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot. Shortly after that, Arthur Blank restructured the organization and decided to name Matt Ryan as the president of football, a new position that was created under this organization. And they quickly moved forward and zeroed in on their target, and they have now hired Kevin Stefanski as the new head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. So we are going to kind of go backwards a little bit. We're going to talk about what happened towards the end of the season, and then we'll kind of lead up to talking a little bit about the new head coach. So, fellas, it's been a few weeks since we've been here. Hopefully you guys have been doing well.
Yeah.
We got a lot to talk to, so I'm going to skip the pleasantries so we can get into the football here.
I love the pleasantries.
Shock, 4-game win streak to end the season. Let's try not to get into the weeds as far as like what happened in the game, maybe a little bit more bigger picture. But as you go into the offseason, like, how do you feel like, even though you're having a change at the top, head coach and general manager, how do you feel like that 4-game win streak kind of helps propel you into the offseason, or maybe you feel like it doesn't necessarily?
I'm at the first part you mentioned. Obviously, I think winning always does that for you going into the offseason. I think going in, winning your last 4 games, and for me, I point to you going into the offseason, especially in those last few ball games when you had nothing really to play for. What I mean, nothing to play for as far as playoffs or extra playing time. And I think when you go into the offseason and you go in the way they did, I think it just shows you have the right type of guys in your locker room. I think you got the right character guys in your locker room to go back and say, all right, this team was beaten down a little bit before heading into that 4-game stretch. Had lost, 5, 6 in a row, whatever it was. And you got a young team. You got a lot of guys who probably haven't been a part of losing streaks, and they find a way to go do it. So that tells me you got the right character guys in your locker room, and you got guys who really care about each other and the pride of playing for this organization. So, yeah, I think the momentum going into the offseason with that 4-game win streak tells you that, hey, yeah, we got a team that can compete with anybody. Obviously, you go and beat the Rams, who are still playing playoff football right now, about to play an NFC Championship game, and you gave them everything they could handle, gave Stafford everything he could handle, made him throw a couple picks and pick six, all that kind of stuff. So I think, yeah, you absolutely have the right guys. And even going into that Saints game, they were on a win streak of their own and feeling pretty good. Their young quarterback was playing well, and you gave them a lot of fits. So I just think going into this offseason, the momentum winning 4 in a row says a lot about the guys in their locker room. And you got to feel good going into what you feel as though is going to be still a really good football team heading in 26.
Arch, we've been through coaching changes before in our careers, and I always felt like when you go into the offseason and you have a coaching change and you're going to have a general manager change, there has to be a little bit of uncertainty. That's the word that I came to, because even the guys, let's say, that are fringe players that maybe battled their tail off and really made an impression on Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot, you're thinking, well, they know what I've done for the organization, so I feel like I got a pretty good chance to be back here. Well, all that is now gone, right? Because you're going to have a completely new leadership team, if you will. So there's a lot of uncertainty. But do you feel the same way about how they went into the offseason, having gone on the 4-game win streak, and it kind of bleeds a little bit of optimism into 2026?
Yeah, no question about it. I had a little bit of experience this with the end of my second year, we won, I think, the last 2 or 3 games of the season after having a really struggle during the year, much like we had this year, and really felt like it propelled us into the offseason. You went in with a lot of optimism. You went in with, hey, let's get back in the gym, let's get back in the weight room, let's get back to work. So you're much more willing to get back into it. And I felt like it helped us. We started 4-0 that following year. We were tied for the division lead halfway through the season. So it did give us some energy in the offseason, which we came in with a lot of confidence. I think, you went into the last 4 games 1-5 in one-score games. You won the last 4 games, all one-score games. I think there's some value to finding a way to win those games. I mean, I've got some numbers here that I've tracked down on one-score games and the teams that are left and all that kind of stuff. But this league comes down to winning late in games or winning one-score games. I think you have to have an idea of how to get that done. What is it going to take to do that? Heightened focus, guys making plays, certainly coaches making the right calls. A lot of things have to happen, even a bounce of the ball here or there. But to not be deterred if something happens in the second quarter or the third quarter that keeps you from getting to that focus of being able to make that happen. So to me, yes, it carries into the offseason, Rack, but I think the things that you did late in the year maybe even manifest itself into a little bit more than just energy in the offseason.
Yeah, no, I think, you guys, you mentioned the Rams, and I threw the name out, and you talked about things going into the offseason. I would imagine it's somewhat maddening for the current players, but it's also exciting because they had just beaten the Rams on Monday Night Football, and now they're going to go watch the Rams play in an NFC Championship, and those are the times when it's like, guys, we're right there. Like, we beat this team, and if there was just a couple other results that would have gone differently, maybe it's us making a run in the postseason, which kind of leads me to my next topic, and I'll start this one off, guys. I want to ask you to describe the 2025 season in 3 words. And I know that's a challenge sometimes with this crew, so I'm going to give you a couple of extra seconds to think about it.
You under the bus right there, bro.
No, I was actually.
Wait, what are you talking about me?
I was actually looking.
I got 3 versions I got written down right here, baby. What you got?
What you got?
I got 2 versions.
I'm going to start it off. My 3 words were 5-game skid, right? I couldn't help to think about. That was 3.
Yeah.
Okay, 5.
No, I was just trying to. I'm thinking. You're taking me back to the 5 games. Okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
It's just now after you see the 4-game winning streak, after you see what happened in Week 18 to where the Falcons game had a impact on the postseason, I couldn't help to think back to the 5-game skid and just what happens if you get 1 or 2 of those games, right?
For sure.
If you end up getting Carolina the second time, we know about the first one was one you want to forget about, right? You go to Germany, like can you find a way to get the Colts game? You had the Patriots. Can you find a way? And look at what the Patriots are doing. Like they're going to the AFC Championship game. So in that 5-game skid, there was just a couple of games where it was like, gosh, if they would have just gone another direction. And maybe that ends up giving you a little bit more motivation for the end of the season. And then obviously you can't go back and relive moments, but those are the times when I'm just like, it's kind of maddening to think about some of those games that were so close, to your point, weren't able to get the victories, and maybe it could have changed the final complexion of the season. I couldn't help but think about that 5-game skid.
You know what Rack just did right there? Okay, so I'm at home and I'm getting ready to watch the podcast. I throw the podcast on. Oh, here's Rack Shock. Art's going to break things down. And he starts talking about 5-game losing streak. I just took my blueberry muffin and smashed it against the wall. I was all into the 4-game streak. We're talking about energy, and then you took me back to the 5. But it's real, right? And there's no question about that.
Yeah.
So,
Arch, what 3 words you got? You said you had a couple different versions here?
Yeah, I got a couple of different versions. Some of it would probably hinge on what you talked about. Should I give all 3 of them, or just let me see if I can pick one out? I'll
really
go
like
with
them. That's what that is. You really like them.
Yeah, well, I got several here. If you can see, you want to borrow one of mine?
They might be one of mine.
They all kind of fall in the same category. Sour taste left.
Yep.
Same thing you're talking about. Not good enough.
Yep.
And maybe the one I was going to settle on, which piggybacks on what you said, golden opportunity lost.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, those are pretty heavy for you, aren't they, Shock?
Yeah, last two
those are big.
I like those.
Anyway,
Golden
it goes to what you're talking about and finding a way to win. We ended up, like I said, 5-5 in one-score games, and we weren't good enough. Left a sour taste. I mean, whatever you want to say in those games that you're talking about that would have created an opportunity. I'm talking about the teams that are one-score winners or the teams that we played. New England, 7-3 in one-score games. They beat us by one. The Rams, they were 4-5. They're the only team that didn't get it, but they won 2 in the postseason, so they're 6-5 in one-score games. And of course, Seattle, we didn't even come close to beating them. It was a one-score game at halftime. 6-3 in one-score games. So all these teams, Denver's 11-2 in one-score games. So, but anyway, the moments lost.
Yep. So that's 2 blueberry muffins smushed into the screen, by the way. Okay, Shock, you're up.
If you want a banana nut, you can
Banana. I don't like either, so I wouldn't have that in my hand anyway. Yeah,
You're not a muffin guy?
Nah, unless it's like a chocolate chip muffin. I'll take that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right, so when I started to think about this, I started to think from the fan perspective because my mom is a season ticket holder, and I talked to her at the games and the things she talked about, and I talked to other fans or other people I know who are real diehard Falcons fans. And the thing that kept coming in my mind was this season was emotionally tough. And for all the reasons you guys mentioned. And you mentioned being frustrated, having this maddening feeling of what could have been, the golden opportunity that you left out.
Yeah.
And you think about how emotional this season was, how up and down it was, where you were going through so many roller coasters of emotions and feelings and feeling great about beating Buffalo on Monday night. You feel good about that. Obviously beating the Rams, being in games, all the one-score games that you're holding on by the end of the ball game, and then at the end, you know, boom, it hurts you. So I think for me, it was such an emotionally tough season up and down. Even us as guys who played but also been a part of this organization, there's still a little fan in us as well. We watch the game and we enjoy watching this organization, and you're invested. We're to be honest, we're all invested in how this team does. So I think emotionally it was tough at times to watch and know that your team could be right there where a lot of these teams are playing right now, and how good a football that they showed. And then there were times you're like, man, what is going on? So I think emotionally tough was the one for me that really, I think, kind of summarizes how this season felt for me as a fan, but also as I'm sure all the other fans around this organization watching this team.
Yeah, we all kind of pointed at the same thing. For the record, what is the three-worded thing?
It said 3 or less. That's what it said.
Oh, okay. I didn't read the instructions.
Yeah, you didn't get that.
I knew he was going to go in on it.
You didn't get that part.
Well, you could have immediately come back. Emotionally tough season.
I mean, you know what I mean.
I completely was on the same page with you. But I just wanted to bust you up.
Arch's point, I did say describe the 2025 season in 3 words, but I guess you could, if you want to make your own definition, which happens a lot on this podcast.
Without getting to the
economy of words.
Tune in 2 notes.
You know what I'm saying? At times I go over the wordage, and you know.
Well, Shock, because of people like your lovely mom, who's a season ticket holder, and all of the other fans and sports radio around town, there is a lot of frustration. There is a lot of emotions because this team has not won the division since 2016, because it has not had a winning season since 2017. So because of that, Arthur Blank, after he decides to let go of Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris, he decides to create a new position, right? This goes back to what he had explained has gone on throughout the course of the season, hiring a company to kind of review the organization. And he decides to add a new position called president of football. And after a round of interviews, a lot of it kind of centered back to the franchise quarterback in Matt Ryan, who was given that new title for the organization. So I'm going to come to you, Arch, and ask you a simple question on how impactful is this going to be, having Matty Ice not only back in the building, but a major component of what's going to happen moving forward?
Well, I think there's a lot to this, Rack. I think that, first of all, to reach out to a guy that was as good a player as Matt Ryan, to have him come in and help maybe guide you back on the right path is a major step for Mr. Blank to lean on a guy that he had brought in as a player and then leaned on to take this franchise the height of heights, and then to go back and try to dive back into that treasure chest a little bit. Think about Matt Ryan. Matt's got a young family, and I mean, pretty good gig at CBS and all the kind of things he's doing. Think about the commitment that he's making to jump into this as well, and how much this organization means to him for him to take on this task of trying to help find our way back to the path. There's no question he knows what it looks like, knows what it smells like, okay? And to have a guy in the building like that, you're exponentially higher on the ladder to climbing back to where you want to be. There's nobody that's more competitive than he is. I said this in a tweet. I think that I've been around Matt Ryan for every year that he's been here. I had a chance, and Shock, you had a chance to do some of this too. You were around him. I interviewed him every week, pre-week, post-game, all the kind of things. Had a chance to play golf with him. I know you have as well. The guy is as competitive as the day is long, and so this task, he's going to attack it like one of the 49 game-winning drives that he went on as a quarterback in the National Football League. He's trying to get in the saddle again and take us on a game-winning drive to get us back to that spot. That's the work ethic he's going to bring to the table.
Shock, I've been covering playoff games the last 2 weeks, and most of my colleagues know that I do some work with the Atlanta Falcons as well, and that was kind of the first question that everybody would ask me is, how do you think Matt Ryan's going to do in this role? Mm-hmm. And to a lot of your same points, Dave, that I think of his 14 years as a quarterback here in the franchise. I think of his 6 seasons helping them win double-digit games. And I think about this organization was probably in its prime for the longest amount of time with him at the helm playing the quarterback position. However, you can't help but think this is a different type of position. This is now a business position, and he's going to have a lot of responsibility on his shoulders with this position. So they say, well, how do you think he's going to do? I don't know. You've never seen him in a front office type position, but he's one of the most competitive players. He knows everything about this organization, every fabric about this organization, and it means a ton to him to help this organization get back to winning ways and get back into the postseason.
I think a lot of people may not understand what it takes to play quarterback. And I think if you look at what a quarterback encapsulates, and you look at the things that he has to do on a daily, weekly, and then a game basis to not just get himself ready, but there are so many other guys that you have to bring with you. And you talk about the success that a guy's had. He don't do it by himself. And I'm sure that everybody's seen the video of, him meeting with certain guys and going through certain stuff. And Arch mentioned, I played with the guy for 3.5 years. The competitive juices between us in those 3.5 years, you would never imagine. I mean, people used to always say, man, does Matt lift weights or you don't look like he really – I said, this dude works harder than anybody you've ever seen. Like, there was not a day that we didn't compete in something. And that goes from the weight room to the field to making sure you got your right checks, reads, there was everything that you could think about, and he was that. And for me, my mind goes to, this is a guy who is so detail-oriented in everything he did when he played. And when I say everything from a guy's split to a guy's angle of departure when he's coming out, his releases to, this lineman, he watched the lineman's feet at times. There was so many things that, that people would never realize that happened in a game or happened while preparing for a game. And I think it bodes well for going into this role, because he knows what hard work looks like. But then also, for a quarterback, you got to deal with a lot of different people. You got to deal with a lot of different personalities. Mm-hmm. And here you are in a role where you got to deal with a lot of different people. You got to deal with a lot of different personalities. And this guy did it at the highest of the highest. You're talking about winning the MVP. It's hard to be in this league with 14 years, to be successful and to have the reputation that he has when you speak about him. You just listen to his teammates talk about him. You listen to his peers who he worked with at CBS in just a short time, 3 years, and they all say the same thing. A guy who is hard work, who is driven, who wants the best for everybody around him. But when that guy steps up, he's going to be ready to go. And I think Arthur Blank knows exactly who he has in that role, and he comes in here as solely focused on bringing this organization back to where it should be. And Arch mentioned it. When it first came out, I was like, I don't know if he's going to do it, because he's got 3 young kids who he absolutely loves to see them grow up. You got the boys who are growing. They're going to be in different sports. He was coaching at one time. You know what I'm saying? So you're like, this guy's a family guy, obviously. But the fact that he's willing to not say sacrifice his family, but to give a little bit up so that he can make this organization better, you got to give the guy a chance to come in here and do that. And I think he has the right mindset to go do that. And knowing him like we all do, he will go down on his shield trying to make sure he's done everything to make this organization what it should be, which is at the top of the league and winning championships.
Yeah, Shock just talked about his attention to detail, which is off the charts. People have asked me, well, why is Matt Ryan? You just talked about the first time he's ever been an executive. Why would he be a good guy to choose your coach or GM? Well, I talked about how he knows what it smells like, what it looks like. He's led him to playoff victories, led him to the Super Bowl, all those kind of things. But this is a really interesting perspective that he's going to bring to the table. Would you follow this guy?
Yeah.
As a player, and know that's different than if I'm working in. There's a lot of great people that work in this building that put together some of these unbelievably Emmy award-winning videos and all these different kind of things, and they've got different facets that they're working on. But as a player, there's a single-mindedness that you have when you're in that with those 53 guys, and there's a guy that stands in front of the meeting rooms every week to get you ready for that week. Would you follow that guy? Mm-hmm. He knows what that feels like, and not throwing any shade on anybody else that's in the building. And quite honestly, there's only a few guys that know what that feels like to be with a guy that I'm going to walk through fire with that guy. I know he's going to have me prepared to play. So that player perspective is that little extra thing that he brings to the table to do the evaluation piece on getting people in the building that can win.
First of all, your guys' perspective was awesome. And that's what's great about this podcast is that you guys we all have been players, but the unique situations that we've been in, especially how close you guys have been to Matt Ryan, brings another perspective for people to listen to hear about how things work with him and what it's going to be like in the future. And I'm going to say 2 things because the last 2 weeks I've been in New England, and when I was there, I talked to Aaron Salkin, who used to be here a number of years ago. And I always like to ask questions about the organization, and I asked him about Vrabel. And you could just see his face light up when he was talking about Mike Vrabel, okay? And I'm not here to talk about the Patriots. What I'm here to talk about is how certain people bring an entire organization together and they get more out of them, okay? So to hear Aaron talk about Mike Vrabel and what he's brought to the Patriots organization and how they flipped in a matter of 1 season.
1 year.
And then last week I was in Seattle and I talked to a guy that used to be there when I played for the Seahawks, and he started telling me about John Schneider. And he started telling me all the unique things that John Schneider brings to the table and why that organization has seen so much success, why they've got so many good players, and why a guy like Mike McDonald's there, and once again, why they've been able to turn it around so quickly. The reason why I tell those stories is you've got a guy like Matt Ryan that you said knows what it looks like, knows what it smells like, knows what it should feel like. So now his job is to go out and find that, right? And he feels like he found it in Kevin Stefanski. Time will tell. Because, guys, when you are a team that is hiring a new head coach in the NFL, it's because your organization or your team did not fare well. Generally, slam dunk head coaches are not just hanging out there without a job.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So you either got to go the coordinator route or you've got to get a head coach that's coming from a place that needs a change of scenery and things you hope will be better. Okay? You go the coordinator route, you could get Ben Johnson or you could get Aaron Glenn. I'm not saying that they're bad coaches. I'm not saying Aaron Glenn's a bad coach and Ben Johnson a great coach, but you got 2 different situations on hot candidates from the last hiring cycle.
Sure.
So sometimes you just never know. For sure. But they zeroed in on Kevin Stefanski. So let's talk a little bit about Kevin Stefanski. 43 years old, been the Cleveland Browns head coach the last 6 years, 2-time AP Coach of the Year, and 2-time brought that organization to the playoffs. My first question to you, Shock, was when you heard this news, what was some of your initial thoughts or reactions that went through your head?
Well, initially the thought was, okay, you got a guy who's been there, who's done it. You got over 20 years in the league of experience. You got a guy who's worked with – because obviously the first thing that really comes to mind for me is, okay, who is going to bring the position that is most important? We got the president of football who knows a little bit about that position. But then who's the guy who's going to cultivate that? And you got a guy who's been there, who's done it, who's had really good success with a lot of different players. Now, take away the last 2 years, obviously they had some instability at quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, and, that's tough to overcome. But you think about the guys that he has had success with, a guy who's here right now, Kirk Cousins. He had success with him in Minnesota. He had a guy like Baker Mayfield who has some success as well. So you look at, can this guy cultivate what is already in the building, which a lot of people already feel like Michael Penix is that guy. Okay, yeah, Mike's got the injury, but you got a guy who's coming in here who knows what it looks like, knows what it smells like to be able to bring that guy around. And then you think about, okay, what does his offense bring? And you look at some of the success he's had over the years with the stretch zone, the wide zone, the play action. He's heavy into that. And, oh, yeah, he loves tight ends. Oh, well, what do we love here? We love tight ends. You talk about getting in 12, 13 personnel, something that we've done really well over the last few years, and we got some guys who can do that. So you think about, okay, does that fit what we like? Does that fit the kind of players we have that's already in the building? So, yes, the scheme, the fit, the guy who understands that quarterback position, the guy who played DB in college, also coach running backs, coach tight end. This guy knows a little bit about both sides of the ball and has been there in the trenches to be able to do it. And, oh, yeah, he's coached with some really good guys as well that's helped bring him along. So initially I went through that whole game and, okay, what are we getting? What are we getting? What kind of guy? And obviously you had to go look up some more stuff and find out more about Stefanski. And then the more, to me, I felt like this was the hire that fit what we are. And there's not a big correlation of, okay, this guy's totally different from the personnel that we already have here in Atlanta. And I'm excited to see it go. And every situation is different. Every team's different. A coach comes into a situation with different mindsets coming from one job to another, how he can make this one better than the last. And I'm excited to see where this can go. And obviously the two pieces with the GM and the president of football will work hand in hand with that to make this the best decision. So I was excited to see what Stefanski will bring to this organization because of what his pedigree has already been.
Arch, the word stability in the NFL doesn't happen a ton. Mm-hmm. There's not a whole lot of organizations that can tout stability. But there's one thing that when I was looking at Kevin Stefanski's career, is so often you have coaches that have been so many different places, held so many different roles. And Kevin Stefanski has been with two teams for the last 20 years. Spent 14 years with the Vikings, and then he ends up getting the Cleveland Browns job, and he's there for 6 years. So to me, it's a guy that knows what it's like to stay somewhere for a while. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, he had a number of different positions when he was with Minnesota, but kind of worked his way through that organization, all the way from assistant to the head coach, worked his way kind of then as assistant quarterbacks coach, and then all the way back up to the offensive coordinator role, and then became a hot candidate to become a head coach. So you have somebody that does know what a little bit of stability looks like, does know what it means to stay with an organization, because if there's one thing that this organization would love to have is some stability, where you can have the same head coach, the same general manager, and now the same president of football year after year after year to instill that culture on this team.
Yeah. Before you answer,
yeah.
Is there anything to the fact that a guy can make it through 3 coaching hires with the Vikings?
Yeah, well, it tells you, obviously, he's a guy they want to retain because of his ability to coach. That you talked about, he's coached different places and all that kind of stuff from personnel or what room he's in coaching. Mm-hmm. So obviously, there's talent there that 3 different coaches. So what was it? Brad Childress, Leslie Frazier, and then he moved on to Mike Zimmer.
Correct.
Coached for all those guys, and they all retained Stefanski, and he went from the different positions Rack just documented. Stability, great word, Rack, because that was one of the words that they used in the press conference when Matt Ryan was introduced as president of football. We want a stable guy that can come in and stabilize things from a coaching standpoint. vision, focus, accountability, his demeanor, how he goes about his business, commands respect. I've had a chance to reach out to a few people in the broadcast business that are kind of tucked in with Cleveland and asked them about Stefanski, and resoundingly, he's a guy that commands respect. He's a guy that was well respected by his players. I think people interpret he's a player's coach scenario as, he lets them do whatever they want. That's not the case at all. In fact, you can go back. It's funny how as much time changes with the way you do things on offense or defense, there's a couple things that don't ever change. And Vince Lombardi said way back in the 1960s, he says there's a, and you can look it up. He got on a poster and he wrote a letter that says what it takes to be number one. And in it, he talks about how every man that plays this game at a high level wants and craves discipline and accountability. And he talks about that. And that's what they feel like that Kevin Stefanski brings. That's what I've gathered on Kevin Stefanski and what he brings to the table. Jacques, you touched a little bit about what he's got in his background. I mean, guys, I get excited about what this guy has been exposed to in his coaching career. You talk about, Brad Childress is a guy that comes from the early tree of the West Coast offense. You can go back to the Bill Walsh days. You can go back to Andy Reid. He coached under Andy Reid in Philadelphia. That's Mike Holmgren. That's that style of offense, that short passing attack you horizontally and attack the field that way, draw people away from the interior and then run the football at them. Then it's ebbed to what Kyle Shanahan's turned into, what we saw Sean McVay do last night with that duo run game, getting after the Bears. He's been exposed to all those different things. Not just a wide zone guy. He's a guy that learns a lot of gap scheme, which I think aids the play action. I mean, I can go deep into this stuff. I've been thinking about it a lot. I'm excited about it. So I mean, I'll probably overshot my bounds here a little bit with this, but I'm really excited about what the guy brings to the table from a man standpoint and a leader standpoint. And then what he's going to be able to impart on the guys, especially on the offensive side of the football, that's going to take us to another level.
Yeah, I think it's great. This is the time of the year when, there is time to be optimistic. There is time to be excited, and that's the only way that you can do it, guys. Because if you're going at this with hesitancy, then you don't have everybody going in the right direction.
No doubt.
Right? It's a new regime. It's going to be a new-looking organization. I think there's going to be some benefits to having a guy like Matt Ryan. Look, the excitement, right?
I'm already getting a call. Can I do the Adam Schefter stuff? Matt Ryan on CBS. Matt Ryan. But I think that there's going to be some value to having Matt Ryan come out on the practice field, and not just as an appearance, but to be out there regularly. And if you're Michael Penix or whichever quarterback is on this roster, and you can come over there and just be like, hey, you saw when I threw that crossing route, like how would I do that better?
For sure.
And just to let him go for a minute, right?
Yeah.
There's not very many opportunities where you get that. And I think there are some exciting times ahead. And speaking of stability, one thing that just recently came out as well is that Kevin Stefanski has made the decision to keep Jeff Ulbrich as the defensive coordinator, understanding this actually goes back a couple of weeks now. Jeff Ulbrich already started to get phone calls from other places, and Arthur Blank said, no, that's not going to happen. No. He blocked all those requests, and ultimately leaving it up to Kevin Stefanski on whether or not he was going to keep him. But I think it was a great decision to do that. DJ, let's talk about that just real quick. The turnaround defensively that Atlanta saw under Jeff Ulbrich's leadership, going from not being inept to being able to get after the quarterback, to finishing second in the National Football League, to having a couple of young guys and James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker and Xavier Watts, and what they did from a performance perspective as rookies. How excited does that have you for at least some stability there on the defensive side of the ball in year two under Ulbrich?
Just think about it. Probably halfway through the season, these guys are just probably playing off pure athletic talent. You know what I mean? Just like, obviously these guys understand the scheme, but to be able to get those guys to play at that level in year one says a lot about knowing how to use your personnel. Sometimes we talk about a guy has, a particular plan and it's going to be thrown in regardless. I think he used the guys really well that allowed them to be able to use their athleticism, to use their talents to help this defense play as well as it did. And you mentioned so many young guys play well in this. And, Billy Bowman was another guy who was in that mix, who was playing really well. And obviously he went down with the injury. But you saw a guy like Xavier Watts as the season went on. This guy covering 53 and a third. If the ball's up in the air, you for a quarterback, I'm nervous because this guy was going to go get it. And that's one thing you loved about him. Obviously, the young guys up front, unlocking some stuff from a Brandon Dorless, who we said coming to the season had to play at a higher level to help this team. Oh, yeah, he go out and have, 8.5 sacks or whatever it is from that defensive tackle spot. Obviously, the young rooks on the outside. I don't think anybody saw James Pierce coming here having 10.5 sacks in his rookie season. And then Jalen Walker over there had another 5.5. I mean, the ability to get after quarterback, the thing that he did scheme-wise, the different disguises. I remember we were talking about the Tampa game, and they were getting hurt so much with Kobe over there on the other side, and the small nuance of dropping D. Alford under there, and you get an interception. Those are in-game adjustments that you make, and that doesn't happen if you don't understand your players, but you don't understand the game and what you're seeing. So it's great to have Ulbrich back. The dude understands this team. He understands defense. He understands offenses, and you saw this defense take a just unbelievable step, and a lot of those guys will be back in the Falcons uniform next year, so you're excited about that.
Arch, you got to have great players to win in this league, but you also have great teachers. And I think we would all agree that Ulbrich has solidified himself after his long playing career of being a very good teacher along with being a great coordinator.
Yeah, and we don't know if his entire staff's coming back. We don't know that. In RAC did a great job of announcing that Ulbrich is back, and I think there's a lot of people that are pleased about that in the building. He's got a tremendously focused work ethic. When you watch him out on the practice field, he's a teacher, like Rac's talking about, spends time with players individually about certain techniques and things, which is something Kevin Stefanski does a great job too as well. And I think that maybe when all these guys know one another and they know their reputations, but I thought the thing that you pointed out, Rack, that was really important to point out was that Mr. Blank denied people's ability to talk to Ulbrich, but did not tell Kevin Stefanski, this is who you have to hire. We want him here if you decide you would like to. And now it's up to you to make that decision. I thought that's something very distinctive that you pointed out. That was good to point out. And after they met, it didn't take Kevin Stefanski very long to decide, hey, I want Jeff Ulbrich here as my defensive coordinator.
So the pieces are slowly but surely, I shouldn't say slowly, it was actually quickly falling into place here. We just a few weeks removed from the end of the regular season. As I mentioned, there was a lot of changes. Atlanta finished the season on a 4-game win streak. Arthur Blank decided to move on from Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris, ended up hiring Matt Ryan as the new president of football, a newly created position here within the organization, and then they moved quickly to hire Kevin Stefanski as the next head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. There's still some things on the docket, as the new general manager will need to be hired as well. Matt Ryan will be intimately involved with that along with the rest of the brass of the organization, but two of the three major pieces are in place.
How did your interview go for GM?
It was fantastic. Well? I'm actually waiting for my second interview, but for some reason the phone's not ringing.
Nice. I got you.
Well, that was the call.
Your interview must have gone better than mine.
No. I'm actually your agent, and we postponed
finalizing the deal over here. Yeah.
Well, listen, it's now the offseason, and so we come back here to cover the major things that happen along. And so as we get more developments with the organization in the offseason, we will be back here to recap it. But unfortunately, I can't tell you that we're going to be here every single week. We would all like to. We would love to sit here and chop it up and talk football with you. But we will be back. Just make sure, do your job. Make sure you like, subscribe, review, all that stuff. That way, when we do come back on, you automatically get notified.
For sure.
You don't even have to look for it. We'll just pop up on your device and say, Shock, Arch, and Rack are back with updates. Because that's what we do.
That's what we do, babe.
Fellas, thanks so much for joining us in the offseason. All right.
Yeah.
Good to see you,
It's another great year. And we'll just turn the page, and now we'll start talking about 2026.
Let's go,
Get
baby.
ready for another year.
What year, Arch, coming up?
2026.
No.
Why you keep dating me like that?
Because it's amazing.
It's an accomplishment.
No doubt.
Well, we haven't got to it yet. So, yeah, 23 coming up, hopefully.
All right, 22 years completed in the booth for Dave Archer. He got, by the way, if you weren't at the game a couple weeks ago, they put him up on the screen to give those guys their kudos, him and Wes up in the booth for all the years of service that they've put in.
That was very kind of the organization to do that. Yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate the opportunity. Hopefully, Mr. Blank sees fit that we can do it one more time.
Blocked you. That's what I know. I heard he blocked other people from coming to get you. So that's all good. Get out my man Arch DMs.
So when you block people, that's how you get Jeff Ulbrich back in the organization. just so happens. All right, so thanks for joining us, everybody. As I mentioned, we'll be back to recap all the major events here going on in the offseason as this organization prepares to load themselves up for what we all hope is going to be a fruitful 2026 season. Until then, enjoy the rest of the NFL playoffs because you know you are football lovers at heart. So just continue to watch all of that, and we'll be here to update you with everything that's happening with the Atlanta Falcons organization. On behalf of DJ Shockley, Dave Archer, I'm Derek Rackley. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody, on the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. Until next time.